The most powerful family of mages had one ruthless rule. If you couldn't awaken mana, you were nothing. And Lion had already failed 3 times. Everyone believed he had lost his mind because he spent every single day digging through the dirt for worthless herbs. But they couldn't see what only he could. After dying in his previous life, Lion was reincarnated into the very game he knew better than anyone else, with an exclusive system capable of turning the most ordinary plants into legendary treasures. And the family that was ready to throw him away would soon be begging him to stay. The story begins by introducing the Asteri family, a bloodline so imposing that their mere presence could bring a bird down from the sky. They are a family with enough power to influence even the Emperor's decisions. Being the most prestigious family of mages, they are famous for casting out anyone who lacks talent. In one of the mansion's hallways, an older man and a few maids whisper in secret about a rumor. One of the maids mentions that the first young master failed to awaken his mana once again, marking his 3rd attempt. Another maid suggests that the second young master might end up becoming the next family patriarch. They comment that it makes sense for the young master to have lost his mind, since he failed 3 times to awaken his powers. The older man, who appears to be the butler, steps forward and asks what exactly the young master has been up to. One of the maids explains that it all started a month ago, when the bedridden young master finally woke up. Upon opening his eyes, he began muttering strange things, frightening the maids who were tending to him. Right after that, he ran out of the mansion in total desperation, even during a heavy downpour. The young man ran all the way to the yard, knelt in the mud, and started digging into the dirt with his bare hands. He dug for so long that his hands were completely injured, but he finally found what he was searching for. What he held with a victorious smile was just a weed, but he seemed incredibly happy about it. The butler and another white-haired gentleman are completely shocked by the story of the weed. The butler tries to calm down, thinking it is no big deal, even if the herb was rare, but the maids know the real problem lies elsewhere. It turns out that ever since that day, the young master has spent the last month doing the exact same thing. Smiling, the young man harvests some plants while a system window informs him that he has acquired blue basil. More system windows keep popping up as he thinks to himself that it was another productive day. He pauses for a moment and looks at his dirt-stained hands, seemingly satisfied with his daily work. The young man realizes he is being watched again, and thinks that being the eldest grandson of the Asteri family is absolutely exhausting. Then he introduces himself. His name is Leon Asteri, but he used to be a Korean man named Baek-e Hyun. In his past life, Baek-e Hyun was a team leader at a company, but he couldn't stand his boss's abuse and quit. With plenty of free time, he decided to play an old game he used to love back when he was looking for a job. Upon logging into the game, he was hit with a surprise. All his characters had been deleted by a hacker. Undeterred, he created a new character, bought a creation pack, and hit the jackpot with ultra-rare skills. He decided he would build a peaceful character, as he didn't want to fight in real life or inside a game. That was his last memory as Baek-e Hyun, smiling at his computer screen in his bedroom. When he woke up, he was Lion Asteri, a character inside the game, 50 years after the main story had ended. He picks a herb and receives a notification for Aqua Rosemary, feeling relieved that he retains the memories of the original body. A system window displays the plant's details and unlocks the Novice Herbalist achievement, awarding him 1,000 shillings. Right after, a new message announces that an exclusive shop will unlock once he accumulates a certain amount of shillings. Lion Asteri calculates that he will need around 100,000 shillings and realizes he might escape this house sooner than he thought. He is relieved to see that the skills he bought in the game are active and that the system windows still function. Then, Leon remembers a very important detail. The body he now occupies has already failed to awaken mana 3 times. Since the Asteri family values nothing but merit, he knows he could be cast out at any moment, so he needs money. Running through the mansion's courtyard, he begins to brainstorm a plan to gather money and safely escape this place. Suddenly, in the middle of his thoughts, he stops running as an unexpected idea strikes him. He considers the possibility of offering a bribe to the patriarch to secure his stay in the family a bit longer. To do that, he needs to improve his stats and create something valuable. At that very moment, a blue light begins to glow around him. Excited, Leon rushes toward the blue light, thinking he must have found something amazing this time. Carefully, he holds a brightly glowing plant and pulls it from the ground, celebrating his success. A system window shows that he has found a red sunfern, a rare 3-star item. Lion is overjoyed to have unlocked a new achievement, but suddenly hears someone call his name. With eyes sparkling with excitement, he thinks about the rarity of the 3-star item he just found. Turning around, he spots a hooded elderly lady watching him, and is left confused about what is happening. The lady is Sylvia, an important figure in the mansion. She remarks that the young man has been quite busy gathering herbs. Lion Asteri stands up and says he has his reasons, then shows the glowing plant to Sylvia, asking if she can see it. Sylvia admits it seems to be a high-quality herb, but the young man insists that is not it and points to the light surrounding it. He shows her the plant up close, but Sylvia maintains the same expression, thinking the servant's rumors were true. Then Sylvia coldly responds that she cannot see any light, leaving the protagonist completely shocked by her answer. Lion realizes that he is the only one who can see the magical aura around the special herbs he finds. At that moment, Sylvia informs him that the patriarch is looking for him and that it is time to return to the mansion. The young man is visibly startled to learn that his grandfather, the leader of the family, wants to see him. He recalls that the patriarch is a strict man who believes in survival of the fittest, applying that rule even within his own family. For Lion, his grandfather is his primary target to build a good relationship with and buy some time before he can escape the mansion. His grandfather's name is Patrick Astery. The young man worries about being summoned so suddenly, since he hasn't prepared a bribe yet. Suddenly a spark lights up in Lion's mind, and a new idea comes to him to handle the situation. He turns to Sylvia and asks her to tell his grandfather that he will see him later, as he has a request to make. With a confident smile, the young man tells Sylvia he has a favor to ask of her before he goes to meet the patriarch. In a luxurious office, a man reports the latest events to the leader of the Astery family, Patrick. Patrick burns the report with flaming hands, irritated that his grandson still hasn't come to his senses and is only picking herbs. The man reports that Lion still cannot feel mana, but his health is good and he has no memory issues. The patriarch, Patrick Astery, grinds his teeth in anger upon hearing the report about his grandson's behavior. In an authoritative tone, Patrick dismisses the man from the room, leaving himself alone to think. As soon as the man leaves, Patrick stands up from his chair with a dark aura and calls for Sylvia. Sylvia enters the office and the patriarch asks in an irritated tone what exactly his grandson is doing. With absolute calm, Sylvia replies that the young man is gathering herbs, and everyone in the mansion already knows about it. She adds that his foraging area has expanded into the forest, which makes Patrick even more furious. To make matters worse, Sylvia delivers Lion's message, stating that he will see him later, which completely enrages the patriarch. Patrick slams his fist on the desk, utterly indignant at his grandson's audacity to make him wait. In a fit of rage, he yells that if Lion does not come see him immediately, he will level the entire forest. Sylvia simply agrees to deliver the message and leaves the office, vanishing into the shadows. Alone, Patrick grumbles about his rude grandson while using a crystal ball to observe him from a distance. He sees Lion picking herbs and complains that the young man should have run to thank him the moment he woke up. Back in his room, Lion stares at various pieces of equipment with a nervous smile, wondering what all of it is. The room has been outfitted with several ultra-high-quality alchemy artifacts, leaving the young man deeply impressed. Lion is shocked to think that he only asked to play around a bit and received equipment that costs as much as a house. Facing all that gear, he prepares to put his plan into action, trusting his instincts. The young man opens his skill window and confirms that just like foraging, potion making also has repetitive quests. In the game world, crafting proficiency has tiers, starting from apprentice, moving to expert, and then artisan. Only 1% of players manage to reach the master tier, which completely transforms the quality of the crafted items. To start, Lion decides to make 100 health potions and drink them all to level up his alchemy as fast as possible. He concentrates and places his hand over the cauldron, feeling the hot steam from the ingredients he mixed. With eyes glowing, he uses one of his skills to extract the magical essence from the potion's components. The red liquid is transferred into a vial, and a system window confirms he has crafted a minor health potion. The young man successfully holds the vial, and the item description confirms that the potion restores a small amount of health to whoever drinks it. He downs the potion in one gulp and celebrates, thinking that having the right equipment makes all the difference in the final result. Two system windows show that his health has been partially restored, and that he has progressed 1 point toward the alchemist achievement. Lion slams the empty vial onto the table and laughs, confident that his plan to impress his grandfather will work. With a determined and slightly intense look, he prepares to spend hours repeating the exact same process. The progress notifications keep ticking up, showing that he is getting closer and closer to completing the achievement. After a long time, exhaustion finally begins to set in, and Lion feels like he can't go on any longer. Utterly drained and surrounded by dozens of empty vials, he flops onto a chair, feeling like he can't swallow another drop. He thinks it is absolute torture to have to drink healing potions when his health is already full, but there is only one left. With great effort, the young man gathers his remaining strength to chug the last vial and finish his task. Finally, he succeeds and the Novice Alchemist achievement unlocks, granting him a new recipe as a reward. The protagonist quickly reviews the details of the new recipe he just learned. With a confident smile full of anticipation, he decides he is ready to start producing the new item. Carefully, Lion begins to sort out the rare ingredients he gathered in the forest for the new potion. While preparing everything, he ponders what the perfect gift for his grandfather would be. He dismisses the idea of mana or health potions, since his grandfather is a powerful mage with doctors always at his service. Then he gets an idea. The perfect potion would be one that heals accumulated mental fatigue. Lion recalls how Patrick Astery lies buried in work every single day without a single moment of rest. Archmages like his grandfather use mana to ward off physical exhaustion, so that isn't an issue for them. However, mental fatigue is a completely different story, and something that even mana cannot easily fix. The potion begins to bubble with a bluish color and a refreshing scent, exactly as the recipe described. He remembers that in the original game, this potion was considered a useless item, sold for just a few coins. But now in this real world, the feeling of creating something so special was completely different. The protagonist uses extraction skill once more, and an intense light fills the entire laboratory. The blue liquid inside the alchemy equipment begins to stir with a highly powerful magical energy. The potion seems to trigger flashes of his happiest memories from back when he was still Bake White Iron in his past life. He successfully created a mental fatigue recovery potion, activating his potion-making specialization. Lion is stunned to see that the potion is a 2-star item, a quality he only expected to achieve at level 8. Even though he is exhausted, just the scent of the potion was enough to clear his mind, proving how powerful it was. A system message informs him that he managed to create a potion that should be impossible at his current level. Suddenly, an immense aura of mana explodes around him, and his mana allocation talent is activated. The system alerts him that he can now control mana with much greater precision than other people. The young man feels the energy surging through his body as he holds the potion that changed everything. Standing in the middle of his room, Lion Astri is encircled by a ring of mana, finally awakening his power. With a satisfied smile, Lion Astri observes the blue energy now flowing from his hand, finally experiencing what it feels like to have mana. He cannot contain his joy and breaks into a loud laugh, celebrating his major milestone. Outside the room, another young man with crossed arms hears the laughter, and Lion shout declaring that the power is finally his. Lion keeps celebrating noisily, completely unaware that he is being watched through the crack in the door. The young spy continues to watch for another moment with a serious expression, keeping his intentions hidden. Shortly after, the young man turns and leaves, walking down a long corridor illuminated by the sunlight. In his room, Lion drops into a chair and relaxes, thinking that now with both mana and money, his escape plan will be a breeze. He closes his eyes with a peaceful smile on his face, savoring the feeling of finally possessing power. Suddenly, he senses that he is forgetting something very important he was supposed to do. After thinking for a moment, Lion springs up from the chair as he remembers what had slipped his mind. On the other side of the mansion, he remembers that he promised to meet his grandfather, the powerful family patriarch. In the office, Patrick waits impatiently, noting that his grandson Lion is quite late for their meeting. Sylvia, who is also present, remarks that she doesn't understand why the young master put so much effort into making a simple potion. Patrick reflects on his own history, remembering how he was a central member of the hero party that saved the world. He thinks about his titles as the leader of the Astri family, a man powerful enough to found his own nation. The patriarch reflects that he could easily secure a comfortable life for his grandson without him needing to lift a finger. He doesn't understand why Lion insists on doing all this, since the family has no shortage of money or power. Sylvia comforts him, saying it is natural for him to worry, but there is something more to the situation. She reveals that while she was watching, she noticed the young master seemed genuinely happy while brewing the potion. Patrick gets annoyed by the idea, stating that happiness is worthless when the end is near. Sylvia reminds him that this was Lion's third mana shock, and surviving just one is already a miracle. For the patriarch, there is no more hope for a miracle. He just wants his grandson to spend his remaining days in peace. Their conversation is interrupted by a knock at the door. Sylvia steps forward to answer it. A servant announces the arrival of the first young master. Lion enters the office with a slightly nervous expression. Lion Astri takes his place before his grandfather's desk and apologizes for being late to the meeting. Patrick glares at him sternly and asks why it took him so long to seek him out since getting out of bed. The young man explains that after the mana shock, he needed some time to think about a lot of things. Lion admits in front of everyone that he knows he possesses absolutely no talent for magic, which worries Sylvia. He reassures Sylvia, telling her that it's fine and that he has already accepted this fact about himself. He confesses that for a long time, he refused to accept that his body was unable to withstand mana. Because the moment he accepted that truth, he felt he would no longer have a place in the Astri family. But now things have changed. He places the potion vial on the desk and says that this is the result of accepting who he is. Lion explains that the potion is the fruit of his studies to become someone who won't shame the family name. And with a gentle smile, he says he made it with his grandfather in mind, who seemed very tired lately. Patrick Astri stares at the vial with startled eyes, not entirely understanding what is happening. He perceives that something has shifted in his grandson, a fundamental change that goes beyond appearance or posture. The patriarch finally understands that Lion spent all that time working hard to create a gift for him. With a flushed face, Patrick is genuinely moved and finds his grandson's gesture deeply admirable. But his rational and proud side takes over, reminding him that he is a transcendent being. He thinks to himself that his body is immune even to the most lethal poisons, so an ordinary potion couldn't possibly affect him. Meanwhile, Patrick Astri melts inside as he recalls his grandson's words. He tries to hide his emotion and regains his stern posture, asking if Lion has finished speaking. With his grandfather's permission, the young man turns to leave the room with a small smile of victory on his face. Lion exits the office, leaving the patriarch alone with Sylvia and the potion on the desk. Sylvia remarks that despite his stern appearance, he seems quite pleased, but Patrick quickly denies it. Even so, the patriarch keeps staring at the potion with a curious and thoughtful expression. He picks up the vial and examines it carefully, sensing that the blue liquid holds an oddly familiar energy. Sylvia suggests analyzing the potion just to be safe, but Patrick declines the offer, trusting the gift. The grandfather says he wants to appreciate his grandson's sincerity and won't doubt the present he received. Understanding the decision, Sylvia bows out and vanishes into the shadows, leaving the patriarch alone. Patrick becomes reflective, realizing how long it had been since the last time Lion gave him a gift. He admires the potion's quality, acknowledging that it required a great deal of study and dedication from his grandson. Although he believes the potion won't have much effect on him, he decides to drink it so as not to waste the young man's effort. The patriarch then tilts the veil and drinks all the blue liquid in a single gulp without hesitation. At that exact moment, a sensation of calm and tranquility begins to wash over his entire body. The tension in his shoulders melts away, and his once restless mind finally finds a moment of peace. Fragments of old, happy memories begin to play through his mind like a movie, and before he even realized it, he ended up falling into a deep, restful sleep, something he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Even though it was just a quick nap, the dream he had that day was incredibly sweet and peaceful. Shortly after, Patrick opens his eyes slowly, feeling completely renewed. He is surprised that he fell asleep, but notices that he doesn't feel tired or sad, just at peace. Looking at the vial, he notices that his mind is clear, and the headache that had been haunting him is finally gone. The patriarch looks out the window with a fresh perspective, feeling lighter and completely invigorated. He holds the vial affectionately and gives a slight smile, thinking about how his grandson always does whatever he wants. He decides he can no longer treat Lion as a weakling, and that he needs to find a way to protect him. The grandfather recalls an old wish, wanting to live a long life alongside his young grandson. Far from there, some servants gossip and spread a rumor that Lion Astria is close to passing away. They twist the story, claiming that the gift to his grandfather was a farewell and that he was gathering herbs for his own resting place. One of the servants even laughs at the situation, saying the young master was looking for a spot to be laid to rest. Suddenly, he gets a massive fright when he is startled by someone who is observing them in silence. A red-haired maid appears and scolds them, making everyone snap back to work immediately. A coworker asks her if everything is all right, but the young woman, named Hannah, mentions that another one of Lion's servants has resigned. Hannah is furious because the servants used to boast about how easy it was to take care of the young master. Now, because of false rumors, they are running away without an ounce of loyalty, abandoning their posts. She calls them ungrateful, but her coworker warns her, as Sylvia was standing right behind her the entire time. Young Hannah turns completely pale with fear upon seeing the mansion's chief head manager. With a calm yet terrifying smile, Sylvia says she would also love to hear the whole story behind that rumor. In another location, a man apologizes for his delay as he arrives at a grand palace. Sylvia, who is waiting for him, says it is fine and asks if something urgent occurred. She explains she had to handle some family matters and asks why she was summoned so early. The man who received the potion was none other than the family patriarch, who glares at Sylvia with a serious look. He requests that Sylvia use her special ability, the Witch's Eye, to take a look at the potion his grandson made. A pink magic circle forms around the vial as Sylvia uses her powers to analyze the liquid's composition. Shocked by the result, she tells Patrick that this is not something the young master could have created on his own. With a look of astonishment, Sylvia holds the vial and reveals that this is the legendary hero's potion. A legend is told about the hero who vanished 50 years ago, following the war against the demons. He was such a powerful figure that no labyrinth or prison in the world could ever hold him. His strength was so immense that even the gods were hesitant to face him in direct combat. Sylvia believes she might be the only one capable of freeing a certain person confined within the labyrinth of that house. Patrick concludes that the potion could only be obtained by the hero, but doubts it is the original since it isn't as potent. With a suspicious look, he continues to ponder the true identity of that mysterious potion. He then dismisses the idea entirely, asserting that it is impossible for his grandson, Lion, to be the hero. At any rate, he decides he will ask Lion for an even better potion, as he wants to give it to his sister. Patrick explains that his sister has been living in a state of dormancy for centuries and hopes the potion might help her a bit. Sylvia, who is actually Patrick's sister, gives a slight smile upon hearing her brother's concern. The patriarch also laughs at the situation, showing a more relaxed side that he rarely reveals. Sylvia says that worrying about a witch like her is pointless, since she has a long life and a body that never gets sick. She advises him not to burden his grandson with unnecessary worries, but Patrick hesitates. Even so, Sylvia bows and says she will gladly accept her brother's affection and concern. Patrick observes her in silence, his thoughts fixed on his sister and the hope that the potion brought. Back in the office, Patrick tells Lion that he looks worried about something. The patriarch quickly denies that he himself is worried, maintaining his usual stern posture. Lion tries to guess the reason, asking if it's a lack of sleep, exercise, or old age, which irritates his grandfather. Finally, the young man hits the mark by saying the cause of the worry is the potion he gave him. Cutting straight to the chase, Patrick asks if Lion can craft a potion of even higher quality. Lion thinks to himself that, in his current situation, it is very difficult to make even another 2-star potion. He knows the last one was a stroke of luck, and that he has no more rare herbs left for a new attempt. Even so, he cannot pass up the chance to please his grandfather and says it is possible, but it will take some time. Curious about the request, Lion asks what the new high-quality potion will be used for. Patrick replies that he intends to gift it to the chief manager Sylvia, which leaves Lion completely shocked. The young man gets it all wrong and starts imagining there is a secret romance between his grandfather and the manager. Thinking his grandfather is lonely, Lion promises to make the potion within 2 weeks to help him out. Patrick is indignant at the timeline and asks why it would take so long to make a simple potion. Nervously, Lion corrects himself and says he can do it in 1 week, desperate not to lose the opportunity. He thinks this is his chance to win his grandfather's favor and promises he will get it done no matter what. The patriarch seems to accept the new proposal and glares at his grandson, who now faces an almost impossible mission. Once outside, Lion walks through the forest and wonders how on earth he will manage to create a 3-star potion. He knows he doesn't have time to train, and that buying expensive herbs would be useless without the knowledge to use them. Suddenly, he gets an idea and decides to check the shilling shop, hoping to find some useful material. A system window opens and shows a preview of the shop, but the items have blurred descriptions and cannot be purchased. Lion is shocked to see the prices in the shop, wondering why a simple old key is so expensive. He doesn't understand why such a worn-out item would cost so much and decides to check the other tabs of the shop. The young man is even more surprised to see that a simple magical seasoning costs 10,000 shillings. Seeing that the shop won't help, Lion decides that his only option is to follow the most traditional method. He knows there is a limit to how many herbs he can pick with his bare hands, so he needs something extra. The protagonist understands that to gather better ingredients, he will need high-quality tools. In a noisy workshop, a man calls out to his brother who is working at the forge. The brother, a large and bearded man, complains that he is busy and asks why he was called. The first man warns that a major client has arrived at the workshop and that he needs to step out to assist them. The bearded blacksmith doesn't understand why he was called, but goes to the entrance to see what is happening. Arriving at the door, he runs into Lion Astery, who asks if he is the owner of that workshop. With his expensive clothes, Lion looks like a wealthy young master and asks if he can try his hand at blacksmithing. The blacksmith is left speechless, but the young man adds that he obviously doesn't intend to do it for free. The protagonist flashes a pouch full of gold coins and says he will pay a very generous compensation. The scene flashes back a bit, showing Lion outside the workshop analyzing the tools. He notices that the quality of the tools is low and imagines that a master blacksmith wouldn't make that kind of item. Even if he asked a master blacksmith, it would be difficult to get a high-quality tool in just 1 day. So, Lion decides to approach one of the blacksmiths and ask if he could try to forge something himself. He approaches with a smile and a pouch of coins, promising a handsome compensation for the trouble. The image shows the coin pouch gleaming, an offer that would be hard for anyone to refuse. The bearded blacksmith complains that he already has a headache and doesn't want to waste time with a nobleman's game. The younger brother tries to calm him down and tells Lion that the money is more than enough for a shovel. The young man warns Lion to watch out for scammers, but the youth just laughs, saying he gave the money on purpose. The younger blacksmith is confused by Lion's reaction, not understanding what the young man intends to do. The bearded man then asks if a delicate youth like him really wants to try making a shovel all by himself. At that moment, Lee notices an important detail about the blacksmith. He is a dwarf. Dwarves are a legendary race that doesn't get burned even when placing their hands directly into the fire. In addition to their strength, they are known for their extremely detailed and careful craftsmanship. Lion is surprised to find a descendant of the dwarves there, and the blacksmith asks what his name is. The young man introduces himself as Lion Astery, and the blacksmith's brother recognizes him as the family's famous eccentric. The dwarf tells his brother to prepare a spot for the eccentric youth, leaving the younger one desperate. He points to a forge and tells Lion to do whatever he wants, while the younger brother works hard. Lion tries to ask the dwarf's name, but he had already turned around and gone back to his work. The brother introduces himself as John and says the dwarf's name is Millionth Mudu, but he can just call him Mudu. John offers to show Lion around the workshop so he can familiarize himself with the environment. He guides the youth through the workshop, showing the tools and equipment available on site. John explains that finished products like those are placed outside to be sold. Lion observes the process and notes that the equipment is good and the work is careful, but something is off. He cannot understand why, with all that care, the final quality of the products is so low. Suddenly, the protagonist notices something strange in the workshop, a detail he hadn't spotted before. A system window displays a low-level fire spirit that looks much weaker than normal. Lion approaches the furnace and asks John if the flame has always been that weak. The young man gets flustered and says the flame isn't exactly weak at that moment but looks confused. Mudu approaches and confirms that the fire's power has diminished, but grows curious to know how Lion knew that. The protagonist replies calmly that the fire itself told him, which leaves the dwarf shocked. Mudu prepares to teach Lion how to make a shovel, but the young man interrupts him before he can begin speaking. Lion asks John to leave him alone, as he has something important to discuss in private with Mudu. The dwarf glares at the youth with suspicion, not understanding what a nobleman like him could possibly want. Mudu asks directly if Lion saw the fire spirit, and the protagonist confirms it with a confident smile. The young man asks if Mudu thinks he can fix the problem, and the dwarf replies that perhaps he can. Mudu makes a proposal. If Lion resolves the spirit's issue, he will personally teach him blacksmithing. And besides that, he promises to accept any request from Lion with maximum priority in the workshop. The dwarf workshop in the Astery Fief is so famous that it receives orders from various other places. Lion gets excited at the chance to have priority in a place like that and accepts the challenge on the spot. Mudu vents, saying he worked hard to expand the workshop, but now the spirit is drained of strength. He explains that without a spirit, the quality of items drops drastically, and as a dwarf, he doesn't understand what spirits say. Lion approaches the furnace and Mudu thinks that despite looking fragile, he might be useful for seeing spirits. The young man turns and tells Mudu that the spirit is thirsty, which leaves the blacksmith completely baffled. The dwarf suggests throwing water on the fire, and Lion scolds him, saying he must have lost his mind. Lion calms him down and explains that they need to give the spirit something it can drink to rehydrate. Desperate, Mudu offers even his masterpiece or anything else if Lion can manage to solve it. The blacksmith asks if Lion is serious about being able to help the furnace spirit. Lion confirms the deal with a handshake and says he will begin working that very night. Night falls over the workshop, and the windows reflect the moonlight while the work continues inside. The protagonist prepares for another night of work, thinking that without meaning to he is doing overtime again. A system window confirms that the spirit is complaining of thirst due to excessive work. Lion understands the situation, since the spirit is dehydrated from being the energy source for the largest workshop in the fief. Knowing what the problem is, the young man grabs the aqua rosemary oil recipe that he already knows. He explains that the herb has a salty taste, but when processed, it turns into an oil that fire spirits can drink. The oil is ready quickly, with a bluish glow and a refreshing scent that fills the room. The protagonist pours the oil over the flames, and the fire spirit drinks it down greedily. But the spirit is still not satisfied, so Lion promises he will make more for it to drink. The young man squeezes all the aqua rosemary he had, extracting every last drop of its essence. The spirit drinks it all once more, and finally its thirst is quenched and its energy is fully restored. The spirit thanks Lion, and the experience for his spirit communication talent increases by 30%. Mudu rushes up to him, completely shocked and overjoyed, shouting that the eccentric youth actually pulled it off. The dwarf looks at Lion with admiration in his eyes, impressed by the young man's incredible ability. He asks if Lion is alright, and the youth replies that he is, despite his exhausted appearance. Lion says it's just because he stayed up the entire night, but he doesn't look well at all. Suddenly, the protagonist faints and crashes to the ground, leaving Mudu completely frantic. Mudu screams in despair upon seeing the young man fainted on the floor, pleading for him not to leave him like that. Sometime later, smoke rises from the chimney of Mudu's house, indicating that Lion is recovering inside. Two curious children approach Lion, who is already awake, and ask him what his name is. The little boy introduces himself as Golden Branch, and the little girl as Jade Leaf, leaving Lion speechless. Lion chuckles, finding the names cute and thinking about how they seem to be very close siblings. He recalls that he also had a younger brother in his past life, but their relationship wasn't the best. The protagonist thinks he won't have any issues since he has no interest in becoming the family head anyway. While he reflects on his family, the children's mother appears to call them away. The woman tells the children to go play, and the little boy says Lion's name must be Young Master. The protagonist laughs and says his name is Leon, and the boy repeats his name with a smile on his face. The boy thinks Young Master is a cooler name and decides to call him that, and Lion agrees without any issue. The mother scolds the children for continuing to interrupt the meal, and they run off shouting. The woman, named Lee, apologizes and Lion says it's no problem, praising the soup she prepared. Lee mentions she was completely shocked when her husband Mudu arrived with a fainted Lion that morning. She thanks him deeply for resolving her husband's problems, even though he overexerted himself. At that moment, Mudu enters the room and asks if the young master slept well, being greeted by his children. The children jump on their father and ask if Lion really managed to heal the furnace spirit. Lion smiles and tells everyone it's time for him to leave, as he has eaten and rested enough. Mudu interrupts him and says he has already prepared everything. He promises a reward for the help. The protagonist gets confused, not understanding what the dwarf blacksmith had prepared for him. The dwarf shows a box with tools and a gold plate, saying that Lion's orders will have priority. Mudu says that isn't the most important thing and asks the young man to accompany him to the workshop. Lion is completely shocked to see a massive pile of gleaming metal bars in front of him. The blacksmith explains that he prepared all that refined iron so Lion wouldn't have to exhaust himself with smelting. Lion is surprised by Mudu's seriousness, and the dwarf asks if he thought this was a joke. The young man assures him that he wants to learn for real, which leaves Mudu satisfied and ready to start the lesson. The dwarf begins the lesson explaining that the foundation of everything is the correct temperature of the iron in the forge. He says the metal cannot just be red, but it also cannot overheat to the point of melting. When the iron reaches a bright yellow color, Mudu shouts that that is the exact moment to act. The blacksmith begins hammering the metal, explaining that controlling the force is essential to shape the blade. After creating the basic shape, he refines the details and sharpens the blade with a whetstone. Finally, the dwarf attaches the wooden handle to the metal blade with a strong and precise strike. Mudu holds up the finished shovel and asks Lion if it didn't look easy, leaving the young man impressed. Lion agrees that it wouldn't be easy for an ordinary person and asks if he can use all the prepared iron. The dwarf agrees and steps back but gets confused when Lion says he already understands how to do it. Before Mudu can react, Lian grabs an iron bar and places it into the fire without hesitation. With a determined smile, the young man says he is going to try making his own tool right now. The protagonist picks up the hammer and begins the work.